The scorching Australian sun beat down on the red dirt as Dr. Alex worked alone at his research station. He had been studying strange energy readings in this remote area for 3 months now. The government had sent him here to investigate unusual electromagnetic patterns that satellites had picked up. What they found was beyond anything they expected. Alex wiped sweat from his forehead and checked his equipment again. The readings were getting stronger each day. Something was definitely happening underground, but he couldn't figure out what. His colleagues back at the university thought he was chasing shadows, but Alex knew there was something special about this place. It was late afternoon when he heard it. A low rumbling sound, like thunder, but the sky was clear. The ground beneath his feet started to shake. Alex grabbed his emergency kit and radio, thinking it might be an earthquake. But then he heard something else that made his blood run cold. Scream. Human. Coming from somewhere near the cliff face about half a mile away. Alex didn't hesitate. He ran toward the sound, his boots kicking up dust clouds as he sprinted across. The rough terrain? The rumbling had stopped, but he could still hear faint cries for help echoing off the rocks. When he reached the area, he found what looked like a small cave entrance that had partially collapsed. Rocks and debris were scattered everywhere. The cries were coming from inside. "Hello? Can you hear me?" Alex called out, getting down on his hands and knees to peer into the dark opening. "Help, ... please, ... came a weak voice from deep within the cave. It was a woman, and she sounded badly hurt. Alex pulled out his flashlight and shone it into the cave. What he saw made his heart race. About 20 feet in, he could make out a figure trapped under a pile of rocks. The person was moving slightly, which meant they were alive, but for how long? "I'm coming to get you," Alex shouted. "Just hold on." He quickly assessed the situation. The cave entrance was narrow and unstable. More rocks could fall at any moment. But someone was dying in there, and he was the only one who could help. There was no time to call for rescue teams, even if his radio could reach anyone from this remote location. Alex took a deep breath and squeezed through the opening. The cave was larger inside than it looked from outside. His flashlight beam danced across smooth walls that seemed almost too perfect to be natural. Strange symbols were carved into the stone, but he didn't have time to examine them closely. The woman was trapped under several large rocks. Alex could see her face now, and something struck him as unusual, though he couldn't put his finger on what. She had dark hair and appeared to be in her early 20s. Her clothes were unlike anything he had seen before, made from some kind of shimmering material that seemed to change color in the light. "My name is Alex," he said, kneeling beside her. "I'm going to get you out of here." The woman looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold both pain and surprise. She spoke, but the words were in a language he had never heard before. It was beautiful and musical, even though she was clearly in distress. "I don't understand," Alex said gently, "but I'm going to help you." She seemed to understand his tone. If not his words, she pointed to the largest rock pinning her legs and said something urgently in her strange language. Alex examined the situation. Rocks were heavy, but he thought he could move them one by one. The biggest problem was that the whole pile might shift and cause more damage. He needed to be careful and methodical, working slowly and carefully. Alex began moving the smaller rocks first. Each one he lifted revealed more of the woman's unusual clothing and accessories. She wore jewelry that seemed to glow with its own light, and her boots were made from a material he couldn't identify. As he worked, the woman watched him with an expression he couldn't read. There was gratitude there, certainly, but also something else, something that looked almost like worry or concern, as if his helping her was somehow a problem. "Almost there," Alex muttered, lifting away another rock. His back was aching, and his hands were scraped and bleeding from the rough stone. When he finally moved the last large rock, the woman tried to sit up but cried out in pain. Alex could see that her leg was badly injured, possibly broken. She needed medical attention right away. "We need to get you to a hospital," Alex said, knowing she probably couldn't understand him, but hoping his tone would convey his meaning. The woman shook her head vigorously and spoke rapidly in her language. She seemed upset by the idea of going to a hospital. Instead, she pointed toward the back of the cave and said something that sounded like a plea. Alex looked where she was pointing and saw something that made him gasp. The cave continued much deeper than he had realized, and far back in the darkness, he could see lights. Not natural light, but something artificial and technological. "What is this place?" he whispered. "Ah!" The woman struggled to speak in English, her words halting and heavily accented. "You ... who saved me," she managed to say. "You ... not understand what this means." Alex was confused, but his immediate concern was getting her medical help. "We can talk about that later," he said. "Right now, you need a doctor." He carefully lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, and there was something about her that felt different from any person he had ever held.
Ouch.
Her skin was warm, but not quite in the way human skin should be. Her breathing was slightly off rhythm compared to what he was used to. As they made their way toward the cave entrance, the woman spoke again. "My name, ... Kira," she said softly. "You saved Kira." "Nice to meet you, Kira," Alex replied, though he was starting to feel that this was far from a normal situation. When they emerged from the cave, Kira looked up at the sky and said something in her language that sounded like a prayer or a lament. Alex noticed that she seemed uncomfortable in the sunlight, squinting and turning her face away. "My truck is just over there," Alex said, pointing toward his research station. "I can get you to the nearest town." But Kira shook her head again. "No," she said in English. "My people, they come for Kira." As if summoned by her words, Alex heard a sound unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was like music, but also like machinery, coming from somewhere above them. He looked up and saw shapes moving in the sky that definitely weren't birds or planes. "What's happening?" Alex asked. But Kira just looked at him with those strange, sad eyes. "You saved me," she repeated. Now, ... Now everything changes. The shapes in the sky were getting closer, and Alex realized that his life was about to become very different. He had thought he was just helping someone in trouble, but apparently he had stumbled into something much bigger than he could have imagined. As the strange aircraft descended toward them, Alex couldn't help but wonder what exactly he had gotten himself into. All he had wanted to do was help someone who needed it. How could that be wrong? But from the look on Kira's face, he was beginning to understand that sometimes even the right thing to do could have consequences you never saw coming. The aircraft that landed near Alex and Kira looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was perfectly silent, shaped like a teardrop, and seemed to shimmer as if it was made of liquid metal. No windows, no obvious engines, nothing that made sense. According to everything Alex knew about flying machines, 3 figures emerged from the craft. At first glance, they looked human, but as they got closer, Alex noticed small differences. Their movements were too graceful, too fluid. Their eyes were slightly larger than normal, and their skin had a subtle glow to it, like they were lit from within. The tallest of the 3 approached Alex and Kira. He was clearly older, with silver hair and wearing robes that seemed to shift color as he moved. When he spoke, his voice was deep and musical, but Alex was shocked to realize he could understand every word. "Kira, my daughter," the man said, his voice filled with relief and concern. "We felt the ground shake and knew something had happened," Kira responded in their strange language. Speaking rapidly while gesturing toward Alex, the older man's expression changed as she spoke, his eyes widening with what looked like surprise and perhaps worry. "You are the one who saved her," he said. To Alex, it wasn't a question. Alex nodded, still trying to process what he was seeing. "I heard her calling for help. I couldn't just leave her there." The man studied Alex carefully, as if he was looking for something specific. "My name is Elder Thane. I am Kira's father and a leader among our people. What you have done today is not a simple thing." "I don't understand," Alex said. "I just helped someone who was hurt. Anyone would have done the same thing." Elder Thane exchanged glances with the other 2 figures. "That is where you are wrong, young man. What you did was right, but it has consequences that you cannot yet comprehend." Kira struggled to sit up straighter, wincing from her injured leg. She spoke to her father in their language, and Alex caught the tone of urgency in her voice. She seemed to be arguing about something. Your daughter needs medical attention, Alex interrupted. You can talk about whatever this is later, but right now she needs help. Elder Thane smiled sadly. Our medical knowledge is far beyond what your people possess. Kira will be fine. But you, Alex, yes, we know your name. You have a choice to make. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. How did they know his name? What choice was he talking about? I need to understand what's happening here, Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. Who are you people? Where did you come from? Elder Thane gestured toward the cave entrance. We are the Kethany. We have lived beneath this land for over 100 of your years. Our ancestors came from a distant star when our world was dying. We found shelter here, in the deep places of your planet. Alex's mind reeled. You're aliens? We are refugees, Elder Thane corrected gently. We have made Earth our home, but we have kept ourselves hidden from your kind. Until now. But why now? What's changed? Kira spoke up, her English clearer now that she wasn't in pain. You changed things, Alex. When you saved me, you triggered something very old and very sacred among our people. Elder Thane nodded. In our culture, there is a law that has guided us for thousands of years. When one person saves the life of another, they become connected. The one who saves must take responsibility for the one who was saved. Alex frowned. Okay, I can understand that. Like, I should check on Kira, make sure she's okay. More than that, Elder Thane said, much more. The law states that the bond between saver and saved is permanent. In our tradition, this bond is sealed through marriage. Alex felt like the ground had dropped out from under him. Marriage? But I don't even know her. That is not how our people see it, Elder Thane explained. By saving Kira's life, you have proven that you value her. Existence above your own safety. This is the greatest declaration of commitment possible in our culture. Kira looked at Alex with a mixture of gratitude and something that might have been pity. I am sorry, Alex. I tried to warn you in the cave, but you do not speak our language. I knew what would happen when my people found us. Alex ran his hands through his hair, trying to process this information. This is crazy. I can't just marry someone I don't know because of some ancient law. That's not how things work. We understand this is difficult for you, Elder Thane said. Your people have different customs, but our laws are absolute. They have kept us alive as a people for generations. What if I refuse? Alex asked. The three Kethani exchanged glances again. Elder Thane sighed deeply. If you refuse, you will be allowed to return to your old life, but you will never be permitted to speak of what you have seen here. And Kira, ... What about Kira? Be cast out from our people. Someone who cannot fulfill the sacred bond brings shame to their family and their community. Alex looked at Kira, who was staring at the ground. It's not fair to her. She didn't do anything wrong. Our laws do not judge right and wrong the way your people do, Elder Thane said. They judge what keeps our community strong and what threatens it. There has to be another way, Alex said desperately. Elder Thane considered this. There is one possibility. If you are willing to learn our ways, to truly understand what it means to be Kethany, then perhaps an alternative arrangement could be made. What kind of alternative? You would come to live with us? Learn our language, our customs, our history? Prove that you can understand what the bond truly means. If after a full season of learning you still wish to leave, we will find another way to honor the law. Alex looked at Kira, who was watching him with those strange, beautiful eyes. What do you think about all this? Kira was quiet for a long moment. I think you are a good man, Alex. You risked your life to save mine without knowing who I was or what I was. That is not something that happens often in any world. But do you want to marry me? Alex asked directly. Kira smiled sadly. I want to be free to choose my own path. I also want to honor my people's traditions. If you decide to learn our ways, maybe we can find a path that works for both of us. Elder Thane stepped forward. The choice is yours, Alex, but it must be made now. Will you come with us to learn what it truly means to save a life? Alex looked around at the strange aircraft, the alien family, and the woman whose life he had saved. His old life seemed very far away now. Thought about his research, his career, the normal world he had known just a few hours ago. Then he looked at Kira again. There was something about her that drew him in, beyond just her unusual appearance. She had a strength in her eyes that suggested she had been through much more than just a cabin. "If I come with you," Alex said, "slowly, will I be able to contact my own people? Let them know I'm safe?" "Not immediately," Elder Thane replied. "But in time arrangements can be made." Alex took a deep breath. He had come to Australia to study unexplained phenomena. He had certainly found that, but not in the way he had expected. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll come with you. But I want to understand everything, your laws, your culture, why this bond is so important to you." Elder Thane smiled for the first time since arriving. "That is all we can ask. Come, both of you. It is time you saw our world," as they helped Kira toward the aircraft. Alex wondered what he had gotten himself into. But one thing was certain, his life would never be the same again. The journey to the Kethany underground city was unlike anything Alex had ever experienced. The aircraft moved without any vibration or sound, gliding smoothly through tunnels that seemed to appear and disappear around them. The walls glowed with a soft, warm light that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "How deep are we going?" Alex asked, trying to hide his nervousness. "Deep enough that your people have never found us," Elder Thane replied. "We have learned to live in harmony with the earth itself." When they finally arrived, Alex's breath caught in his throat. The underground city was massive, stretching out in all directions like a vast cavern filled with impossible architecture. Buildings seemed to grow from the rock itself, spiraling upward in organic shapes that defied everything Alex knew about construction. But what amazed him most were the people. Hundreds of Kethany moved through the streets, all with that same graceful movement and subtle inner glow. Children played games that involved floating objects and light patterns. Adults tended to gardens that grew without soil, their plants reaching toward ceiling panels that mimicked sunlight. "This is incredible," Alex whispered. "How long did it take you to build all this?" "We did not build it," Kira said, speaking more easily now that her pain had been treated with some kind of advanced healing device. "We grew it. My people do not force the earth to accept our presence. We ask it to welcome us." Over the next few days, Alex began to understand what she meant. The Kethony had technology that worked with natural forces rather than against them. Their energy came from the Earth's magnetic field. Their food grew in chambers that used mineral-rich water and carefully controlled light. Everything was designed to leave no trace on the surface world above, but learning their technology was just the beginning. Alex quickly discovered that understanding Kethany culture was far more complex than he had imagined. "Why is this bond law so important to you?" Alex asked Kira one evening as she showed him through their vast library. The books were made of a material that felt like silk, but displayed words that changed and moved as he watched. Kira paused at a section filled with historical records. "When our ancestors first came to this world, they were dying. It's not just from the journey, but from despair. They had lost everything, their home, their families, their future." She pulled out a book that immediately began displaying images, and the air above it, Alex saw scenes of a beautiful world with twin suns, then catastrophic destruction as the planet was consumed by some kind of cosmic disaster. "The survivors who reached Earth were broken," Kira continued. "They had saved themselves, but they had lost the will to live. It was then that the bond law was created." "I don't understand the connection," Alex said. "The law wasn't about marriage originally," Kira explained. "It was about recognizing that when someone saves your life, they are choosing to believe that your life has value. And when someone believes your life has value, you have a responsibility to live up to that belief." Alex studied the images floating above the book. "It's about giving people a reason to keep going?" "Exactly. The marriage tradition came later, and our people realized that the strongest bonds were formed between those who had saved each other in different ways. But the core idea remains the same. We are all connected, and we are all responsible for each other." As weeks passed, Alex found himself drawn deeper into Kethany society. He learned their language, which was incredibly complex, with different words for the same concept, depending on the emotional context. He discovered their art, which combined visual beauty with telepathic emotions that could be felt by anyone viewing it. Most importantly, he began to understand their social structure. The Cathani didn't have leaders in the traditional sense. Instead, they had guides, people who had shown wisdom in different areas of life. Elder Thane was a guide in matters of law and tradition. But there were others who guided decisions about technology, agriculture, and relationships. "Your people make decisions so differently from us," Alex observed one day as he watched a community meeting. Instead of arguing or voting, the Cathani seemed to reach consensus through a process that looked almost like meditation. "We listen to all voices," explained Zara, another young Cathani who had become Alex's friend. "But we also listen to the silence between the voices. Sometimes what people don't say is more important than what they do say." Alex was fascinated by this approach, but he also found it challenging. He was used to direct communication, to stating his opinions clearly and defending them. The Cathani way required patience and intuition that he wasn't sure he possessed. His relationship with Kira was evolving too, though not in the way he had expected. Instead of the awkward arranged marriage situation he had feared, they were becoming genuine friends. Kira was incredibly intelligent, with a curiosity about human culture that matched his interest in hers. "What do you miss most about your old life?" she asked him one evening as they walked through the vertical gardens that provided food for the city. Alex thought carefully before answering. "I miss the simplicity," he said finally. "Everything here is so complex, so interconnected. In my world, if I wanted to help someone, I just helped them. I didn't have to worry about ancient laws or community obligations." "But did your help really mean anything?" Kira asked gently. "If you helped someone and then walked away, never to see them again, did you truly change their life?" Alex considered this. He thought about all the times he had given money to people on the street, or helped someone with a flat tire, or assisted a lost tourist. He had felt good about helping, but he had never thought about what happened to those people afterward. "I think I'm beginning to understand," he said slowly. "Your way isn't just about helping someone once. It's about making sure the help actually matters." Kira smiled, and Alex noticed that her smile was different from when he had first met her. Warmer, more genuine. "You are learning faster than most of us expected." Alex's education wasn't without challenges. Some members of the community were skeptical about having a human among them. They worried that he would never truly understand their ways, or worse, that he might betray their location to the surface world. Why should we trust him? Alex overheard one elder asking during a community discussion, "His people are destructive and selfish. They cannot even take care of their own planet." Elder Thane's response was patient but firm. "He has shown us that not all humans are the same." He risked his safety to save Kira without knowing who she was or what he might gain from it. That is the behavior of someone who can understand our values. Despite the skepticism of some, Alex found himself accepted by most of the community. The children especially seemed to enjoy having him around, fascinated by his stories about the surface world and his different way of thinking about problems. One day, as he was helping with the harvest in the underground farms, Alex realized something that surprised him. He was happy. For the first time in years, he felt like he was part of something meaningful, something bigger than himself. "I think I'm starting to understand what you meant about the bond law," he told Kira that evening. "It's not just about marriage or obligation. It's about recognizing that we're all connected, and that connection comes with responsibility." Kira nodded. "And how do you feel about that responsibility?" Alex looked around at the peaceful city, at the people who had welcomed him despite their initial doubts, at the woman who had become his closest friend and guide in this strange new world. "I think," he said slowly, "that I'm ready to accept it." But accepting the responsibility was one thing. Living up to it would be another challenge entirely, as Alex was about to discover. 3 months into his stay with the Cathani, Alex thought he was finally beginning to understand their world. He had learned their language well enough to have basic conversations, could navigate the underground city without getting lost. He even helped with daily tasks, like tending the energy crystals and teaching human mathematics to curious children. Then everything changed in a single morning. Alex woke to the sound of urgent voices echoing through the tunnels, the usual peaceful Atmosphere of the city was replaced by something he had never felt here before: fear. People were gathering in the central plaza, their faces tight with worry. "What's happening?" Alex asked Kira as she hurried past his quarters. "Surface dwellers," she said, her voice strained. "They're coming?" Elder Thane was already addressing the crowd when Alex and Kira arrived at the plaza. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by barely controlled tension. "The mining company has discovered the energy readings we've tried so hard to hide, Elder," Thane announced. "Their equipment has detected our underground installations. They plan to begin deep excavation within days." A murmur of distress rippled through the gathered Kethany. Alex felt his stomach drop. This was exactly what they had all feared would happen eventually. "How much do they know?" asked Zara, the young woman who had become Alex's friend. "Enough to understand what they've found, but enough to bring heavy machinery and drilling equipment," Elder Thane replied. "If they proceed with their plans, they will break through into our outer chambers within a week." The crowd erupted in worried voices. Some suggested fleeing immediately to find a new home. Others argued for trying to create false readings to confuse the mining equipment. A few even mentioned the possibility of revealing themselves to the human authorities and asking for protection. "We cannot flee again," declared an elderly woman named Vera. "This is our home now. We have lived here for over a century. Our children were born in these tunnels. But if we stay and fight, we risk exposing our existence to the entire surface world," countered another elder. "That could mean the end of our people's safety forever." Alex listened to the debate with growing unease. He understood both sides of the argument, but he also realized something that none of the Kethany seemed to be considering. "What if there was a third option?" he said, speaking up for the first time. The plaza fell quiet. All eyes turned to Alex, and he suddenly felt the weight of hundreds of years of Kethany tradition looking down at him. "You have experience with surface dwellers?" Elder Thane said carefully. "What do you suggest?" Alex took a deep breath. "I could go back to the surface. Make contact with the mining company. Maybe I can convince them to stop without revealing your existence." The suggestion caused an immediate uproar. Looked hopeful, while others appeared horrified at the idea. "That's incredibly dangerous," Kira said, stepping closer to Alex. "If you fail, you could lead them directly to us." "And if you succeed," added Vera, "what then? What story could you possibly tell them that would make them abandon a potentially profitable mining operation?" Alex had been thinking about this ever since he heard about the problem. "I tell them the truth, but not the whole truth. I explain that there are unstable energy sources underground that could cause dangerous explosions if disturbed. I have the scientific credentials to make them believe me." Elder Thane studied Alex's face intently. "And what if they demand proof? What if they want to investigate these energy sources themselves? Then I'll find a way to give them proof that doesn't expose your existence," Alex said, though he wasn't entirely sure how he would manage that. The debate continued for hours. Some Kethene supported Alex's plan, seeing it as their best chance to remain hidden. Others argued that trusting their safety to a human, even one who had lived among them, was too risky. Finally, Elder Thane called for quiet. "There is another consideration we must address," he said solemnly. "If Alex returns to the surface world to help us, he will be putting himself in great danger. And if something happens to him," he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. If Alex was hurt or captured while trying to protect the Kethany, Kira would be dishonored under their bond law. She would bear the responsibility for his fate. "I'm willing to take that risk," Kira said suddenly, surprising everyone, including Alex. "Daughter, you don't understand what you're saying," Elder Thane protested. "I understand perfectly," Kira replied, her voice steady, despite the emotion Alex could see in her eyes. "Alex has spent months learning our ways, understanding our values. Now it's time for us to understand his. In his world, people take risks to help others, even when those others are strangers. We are not strangers anymore." Alex felt something shift in his chest as he listened to Kira speak. Over the past months, their relationship had evolved from obligation to friendship to something deeper that neither of them had fully acknowledged. "If I do this," Alex said slowly, "I need to know that you all understand I might not succeed. I might make things worse instead of better. We understand, Elder Thane said. But you also need to understand what you would be sacrificing. If you return to the surface world, even temporarily, you may not be able to come back. Your government will have questions about where you've been. Your old life will try to reclaim you. Alex looked around at the faces surrounding him. These people had become more than just subjects of study or temporary hosts. They had become his community. His family in a way he had never experienced before. What do you want me to do? He asked Kira directly. Kira was quiet for a long moment, and Alex could see her struggling with the decision. Finally, she stepped forward and took his hands in hers. I want you to choose what feels right to you, she said. Not because of our bond law, not because of pressure from our community, but because of who you are and what you believe in. Alex realized that this was the moment everything had been building toward. Not just his time with the Kethany, but his entire life. He had always been someone who wanted to help, who was drawn to solving problems and protecting others. Now he had to decide whether he was willing to risk everything for a people who had become his own. There's something else to consider, Alex said finally. Even if I manage to stop the mining operation, it's only a temporary solution, eventually. Other humans will find you. Your people need to start thinking about how to coexist with the surface world, not just how to hide from it. You're suggesting we reveal ourselves? Elder Thane asked. And if that day comes, you'll need someone who understands both worlds to help you navigate it. The implication was clear. Alex wasn't just offering to help with this one crisis. He was offering to dedicate his life to bridging the gap between two worlds. Okay, if I do this, Alex continued, I want something in return. I want your promise that you'll start preparing for eventual contact with humanity. I want you to trust that not all humans are enemies. Elder Thane looked around at his people, seeing the mixture of fear and hope in their faces. And if we agree to this, what assurance do we have that you will return to us? Alex looked at Kira, seeing his own feelings reflected in her eyes. You have my word. And you have something else. What's that? Kira asked softly. You have my heart, Alex said simply. This has become my home. You've become my family. I am not going anywhere permanently. The plaza erupted in discussion again, but Alex only had eyes for Kira. She was smiling through tears, and he realized that somewhere during these months of learning and growing, they had fallen in love. Not because of an ancient law, but because of who they had become together. So, Alex said, raising his voice to address the crowd, are we going to save our home or not? The decision, when it came, was unanimous. Alex would return to the surface to face the mining company and hopefully buy them time to prepare for a future neither world was quite ready for. But first, there was something important he needed to do. Before Alex left for the surface, he and Kira stood together in the crystal garden where they had spent so many evenings talking. The glowing plants around them seemed to pulse with a gentle rhythm, as if responding to the emotion in the air. Are you afraid? Kira asked, her hand finding his. Terrified, Alex admitted, not of failing. I'm afraid of losing this. Losing you. Losing the family I never knew I wanted. Kira smiled, that same warm expression that had become so familiar to him over the past months. You won't lose us. We'll be here when you come back. And if I don't come back, then we'll come find you, she said simply. That's what families do. The next morning, Alex emerged from the underground tunnels for the first time in 3 months. Australian sun felt harsh against his skin, and the open sky seemed impossibly vast after living in the cozy chambers below. But he had work to do. His first stop was the mining company's temporary headquarters, a collection of trailers and equipment about 5 miles from the Kethany entrance. Alex took a deep breath and walked into the main office, where he found a harried-looking supervisor named Jake, reviewing geological surveys. Can I help you? Jake asked, looking up from his papers. I hope so, Alex said, pulling out his identification. I'm Dr. Alex Chen, and I've been doing research in this area for the past few months. I think you're about to make a very dangerous mistake. Jake's expression shifted from annoyed to interested. What kind of mistake? Alex had rehearsed this conversation dozens of times during his journey to the surface. The energy readings you're detecting aren't from a stable mineral deposit. They're from a natural electromagnetic phenomenon that could become extremely volatile if disturbed. Volatile how? Jake asked, leaning forward. Think of it like a pressure cooker, Alex explained, grateful for his scientific background. The energy is contained by the specific rock formations around it. If you drill through those formations, you could trigger a release that would be like a localized earthquake. Jake frowned and pulled out his survey maps. Our geological team didn't mention anything about instability. They wouldn't have detected it with standard equipment, Alex said. The phenomenon only shows up with very specific electromagnetic sensors. I've been monitoring it for months as part of a university research project. This was technically true, even if Alex was leaving out some important details about what was actually generating those electromagnetic readings. Over the next hour, Alex walked Jake through a carefully prepared presentation that combined real science with creative interpretation. He showed readings from his equipment, explained the potential dangers, and even provided mathematical models that demonstrated how drilling could trigger catastrophic instability. This is serious, Jake said finally. Be looking at major liability issues. Exactly, Alex agreed. But there's good news too. I think I might have found a way to safely extract the energy without triggering the instability. Jake's eyes lit up. How? It would require a completely different approach. Instead of deep drilling, we'd need to work with the natural energy flows. It's more complex, but it could actually be more profitable in the long run. What Alex proposed was essentially describing Kethany's technology without revealing its source. He suggested methods that would work with natural electromagnetic fields rather than disrupting them. Techniques that would actually complement the underground city rather than threatening it. The problem is, Alex continued, this approach would require partnership with researchers who understand the phenomenon. People like me, and potentially others, who have been studying similar energy patterns around the world. Jake was clearly intrigued, but he needed to convince his superiors. Over the following weeks, Alex found himself in meeting after meeting with mining executives, government officials, and scientists. Each time he refined his story, adding more details and providing more evidence. The breakthrough came when Alex suggested bringing in international experts who specialized in electromagnetic energy extraction. Of course, these experts would actually be Kethany, who could work with the humans while carefully concealing their true nature. You're talking about a completely new kind of energy industry, said Rebecca, mining company's chief engineer. During one crucial meeting, if this technology works the way you're describing, it could revolutionize how we think about renewable energy. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Alex replied. But it has to be done right. Can't rush into this without proper safeguards and expertise. Meanwhile, Alex had been making regular trips back to the underground city to update the Kethany on his progress. Elder Thane and the other leaders were cautiously optimistic about the plan. But they knew the real challenge would be implementing it without exposing their existence. The humans will want to meet these experts, Elder Thane pointed out during one strategy session. How do we present ourselves without revealing what we truly are? We tell them you're from a remote research facility, Alex suggested. Somewhere that's been studying these phenomena for decades. We create a backstory that explains your advanced knowledge without mentioning your real origins. Kira, who had become instrumental in planning the cultural aspects of the deception, added some of our people could pass for human if they're careful. We've been studying surface dweller behavior through Alex for months. The plan they developed was complex but elegant. A small group of Kethany would emerge as researchers from an isolated facility in the mountains. They would share some of their technology, carefully presented as human innovations, while working alongside the mining company to develop sustainable energy extraction methods. 6 months after Alex had first emerged from the tunnels, the plan was put into action. Jake and his team met with the research group at a neutral location. Alex watched nervously as Elder Thane, Kira, and 3 other Kethany presented themselves as Dr. Thane Wilson, Dr. Kira Adams, and their associates. The deception worked perfectly. The Kethany's natural grace and intelligence impressed the humans, while their advanced knowledge of electromagnetic phenomena convinced everyone that they were dealing with brilliant scientists rather than aliens. "This is incredible," Rebecca whispered to Alex as they watched the Kethany demonstrate a small-scale version of their energy extraction technology. "Where have these people been hiding?" "Sometimes the best discoveries come from the most unexpected places," Alex replied, which was certainly true.
Always.
Over the following year, the partnership between the mining company and the research facility grew into something much larger. The sustainable energy technology they developed together attracted attention from governments and corporations around the world. The area that had once been threatened by destructive mining became the site of an innovative research center. Alex found himself in the unique position of being the primary liaison between the two groups. Officially, he was a scientific coordinator. Unofficially, he was helping to manage humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. Even though neither side fully understood what was happening, the success of the project also resolved the question of Alex's relationship with Kira. The ancient bond law had brought them together. But what kept them together was genuine love and shared purpose. When they finally had their wedding ceremony, it blended traditions from both cultures, symbolizing not just their union, but the beginning of a new kind of cooperation between two species. "Do you ever regret it?" Kira asked Alex on their first anniversary as they stood in the crystal garden that had become their favorite place. "Regret what?" Alex replied, though he knew what she meant. "Giving up your old life, your simple, uncomplicated human existence?" Alex looked around at the underground city that had become his home, thought about the impossible technology he worked with every day, and considered the amazing woman who had become his partner in life and work. "I didn't give up my old life," he said finally. "I just discovered what my real life was supposed to be." The Kethany law that had seemed so frightening at first, the rule that bound the saver and the saved, together had turned out to be wisdom disguised as tradition. Alex had saved Kira from the cave-in, but in return, she had saved him from a life without purpose, without connection, without the deep satisfaction that came from being part of something larger than himself. Years later, when the first official contact between humanity and the Kethania was announced to the world, Alex and Kira were there to help both species understand each other. The story of how they met became a symbol of how the most meaningful relationships often begin with simple acts of kindness. The alien culture's rule about marriage had seemed strange and unfair at first, but Alex had learned that the best laws, whether human or alien, aren't really about controlling people. They're about helping people discover the connections that make life worth living. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, saving someone's life means they get to save yours right back.